Hey guys, it's me. I was like 2 minutes into my previous video before some random neighbor was walking by. So this story is going to be about my ex, the one that I've talked about in previous video. Didn't divulge much, but we're going to cover everything. So stay tuned. This might be long because your girl don't know how to edit, so it's all unedited. Okay, so we're gonna start from the way beginning, like middle school beginning. So him and I went to the same middle school, and I feel like if you have already been through this stage in your life and puberty and all this other stuff, it's a very, very awkward time. Um, it's just you're finding yourself and all this other stuff, and he was pretty awkward. He had braces, which clearly I never did. And he just was really nerdy, I felt. He was fairly still attractive, but at the time I wasn't really dating anybody. I was very awkward and shy, I guess. And so yeah, I moved and I went to the high school and middle school I eventually graduated from. So fast forward about, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years later, and we had graduated in 13, so I think it was 2014 when I reconnected with him, and at this point, puberty did him well, and he was very attractive, and I was like, yeah, let's meet up. And he still lived in Blaine, and I was about a 15-20 minute drive there. And so we started dating, and we dated when I was just 20. Yeah, I was just about to turn 20, and he had just turned 19. We are 6 months apart. And he had his own place, which I thought was pretty awesome for a 19-year-old man to like already live on his own. And we were together, and I met his family, and coincidentally his family lived in the same apartment building, just 2 floors up and then a ways away. So like they were there, but they weren't, if that makes sense. And I learned pretty quickly that he was a big mama's boy, and I don't say that like a bad thing, because I'm not trying to trash him in any means, but his mom had him and his sister when she was really young, and so he was really close with his mom, and his mom was, like his person, right? Like my dad is to me now. And so I learned fairly quickly that like everything he did, his mom had to approve, which being a young adult, like that's not that bad of a thing. Looking back, I realized I overstepped a lot of boundaries, and at that time in my place with me and my dad, we were like starting to rekindle that relationship that I spoke about previously. So it was still kind of rocky. It wasn't, as like put together and as strong as our relationship is now. And so yeah, coming from a household where I didn't have that relationship with a parent, whereas he did, was very odd to me. And I found it weird in a sense that like, okay, you're really close with your mom, like you're 19, about to be turning 20. Like I felt like you need to like get your own acceptance, if that makes sense. And overall our relationship, I felt, was really strong. It was very healthy. I will say that I moved in with him really quickly, and I loved it. Like, I felt we were moving in the right direction. We were saying, I love you. And at this point, we had just hit our year mark. So 2014 to 2015, we were pretty together. Like, this felt real, and it felt like something that would lead into years and stuff like that. And he actually got me a promise ring. And I do have photos. I wish I could show you guys because your girl is filming on her phone, so I can't. But he got me 2 promise rings because the first one was really big. Like, the band was really thick, and obviously I didn't have this ring at the time. And I wasn't used to wearing rings. And so it was really loose, so we exchanged it for a thinner band, and I like the square cut, so your girl got that. That was on Mother's Day weekend of 2015, so that, I got a nicer ring. The first ring, people thought, like, it looked like an engagement ring. That's, like, the look of it. And it wasn't. Obviously, it was a promise ring. And so, yeah, things were fairly good, and it seemed like, we were heading into the right path. So I, at the time, had just started working at a Super Target, and I was doing some really odd hours because I was transitioning from working at a daycare during the day and then working at the Target at night, just to get a little extra money. And then I worked at a gas station, so I was like transitioning between, life odd ends and everything, so it was pretty crazy. So we weren't, like, able to see each other as much as, young couple would, but we were still trying to make it work, right? And so then, as the months dragged on, I noticed we were starting to argue a little bit more. I feel like the big turning point was because he wanted to get a vehicle that I felt wasn't something, like, a good investment, I should say. He wanted a truck, and you had a working vehicle. Like, at the time, I just didn't feel like it was something that he should have gone and done. So we were arguing quite a bit. And at this time, I started noticing that his mom, she had a friend and her children living in another apartment complex. So there was just this big area that had multiple, apartments, right? And so we were here and, like, they were there, right? So walking distance kind of thing. And I noticed that she started coming around quite frequently. But she's friends with my ex's mom's mom. Like, she's friends with her, right? And so I'm just thinking, whatever. So here comes the juicy part, is I started at the gas station, and so I was working 2 to 10s. And no more other jobs. It was just strictly this. So my hours were always 2 to 10. And he worked during the day. So he would actually get off at 2. And so, yeah, that was kind of difficult in and of itself. But so I started, I'm home and I'm trying to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. And he was sitting out in this pavilion that they had at this apartment complex. And he would be sitting out with his mom and this woman for hours, in the wee hours of the morning. And I caught them once. And I was like, why are you sitting out there at 2 o'clock in the morning? And he was like, oh, we're just chilling. And at this time, it was summer. So, it's not, like, super unfamiliar, like, not so typical. But, like, you have your sleeping girlfriend in your bed. And you're sitting out in the middle of the night with your mom and this woman. This woman, so she is 15 years older than us. So at the time, we were 20. So she was 15 years older than us. And she had 2 children. And so at the time, I think her oldest was just entering high school. And I think her youngest was just entering elementary school. So let that sink in. We're 20. her children are his siblings' ages. I think his middle brother's age, which was anywhere between 14 and 15 at the time. Okay? So, as we're starting to randomly argue about things, I mean, I started noticing things were going downhill pretty quickly. So that leads me into 2015. So we're almost getting towards the end of the year, and it's the end of September, and October is my birth month. And so we were arguing so hard. I was like, I'm just gonna go stay with my dad for like a couple days. It was during the weekend. I was like, I'm just gonna go to my dad's for the weekend just to give each other a break, and I'll come back and like we'll work through this. Like, I felt like we were strong enough to overcome these little battles, like I really felt like we were it. And so I come back, and he proceeds to tell me that he wants me moved out, that I have 24 hours to move out, and he's ending everything. He didn't even want to work through it. He didn't want anything to do with anything. He literally, I got there and was like basically kicking me out, like saying, you need to leave. So I do. And then, yeah, I'm trying to get my train of thought because it's 3 years ago. Like, I'm trying to still move on because what I ended up finding out is that 2 weeks before he kicked me out, the first weekend in October of 15, my ex and his mom's friend, that woman who's 15 years older than us, had already started dating. Like, they were together, they were a thing, they had the title, and I found this out on her Facebook page, because, your girl was just broken up, and I was Snoopy. Like, I was really, really hurt, like, to the point where that's all I was thinking about. And it also, this situation made me give up my dog, because I had a dog with him. I had her previous to meeting him, but she came with me, like she was my dog. And one of my dad's stipulations at the time for me to move back was that I had to get rid of her. So I lost a boyfriend, and I lost my dog. The one thing that like was mine before him, I had to give up. So I was like swirling with a whole other emotion, and just I was so hurt. And I had to check if they were up there. And so yeah, I was so hurt. And so I snooped, and I found out on her Facebook that she put the date, and I was shocked, and I confronted. I was like, so you're cheating on me. You cheated on me with someone 15 years older than us. And I still, I guess I can say like I'm over it, but I'm not, because he never admitted to it. And I'm sure if a female watches this and says, oh, it's been 3 years, like, get the fuck over it. But I also feel like there's some people out there will be like, for you to have full closure and like truly in your heart move on, he needs to admit it. And I think that's what it is. Like, I am over him. Like, that's my past. Like, it's 3 years ago. I have a kid. But just admit it. Like, he sat there and strongholded and said that he was not cheating. He did not cheat on me with her. They're still together. 3 years later, they're still together. So that whole time with my previous video about my son's father, so we broke up in 15, okay? October 15th, or in October of 15. I met my son's father in March of 16, and I had my son December of 16. and they're still together. So they were together the whole time that I was like trying to, you know, flaunt my son's father in front of them, and it was a great time in my life. Yeah. But yeah, I wish them nothing but the best. Like, they're still together. My only question to him would be, like, you're 23. She can't have kids. I'm pretty sure there was a conversation before we were done that she said that she can't have kids, or that she doesn't want to. I mean, she's pushing 40 and you're 23. Like, wouldn't you want your own kids? That would be my number one question. Forget if you cheated. Like, forget admitting that. It would be literally asking him, don't you want your own blood? Like, don't you want your children to have your last name? That would be my only question. That's it. But yeah, to each their own, I guess. Like, do you know, like, they're still together. Congratulations. I wish them nothing but the best. Months after they got together, she got another promise ring from him. It looked similar to mine, but, you know, good for them. But yeah, that's the story on my ex that correlated, I guess, kind of with my son's father. So yeah, this was like not that best of a video because, like, I was jumbled and everything, but yeah, I just wanted to share. Yeah, to each their own, I guess. So bye.